People are getting faster and shallower at the same time. The output goes up. The understanding goes down. And for a while, nobody notices because the output looks fine. The people who will matter in 5 years are not the ones who used AI the most. They are the ones who used AI and still maintain the ability to think, to form original judgments, to notice when something is wrong, to work through hard problems without a prompt to guide them. That combination is becoming rare. This video is about how to stay on the right side of that divide. There is a concept in neuroscience called cognitive offloading. It describes the very normal, very human habit of using external tools to extend your mental capacity. Writing things down so you do not have to remember them. Using a calculator so you do not have to do arithmetic in your head. Setting a calendar reminder so you do not have to track time consciously. Cognitive offloading is not new, and it is not inherently bad. It is how humans have always managed the limits of working memory. But here is what changed. For most of history, what you could offload was narrow. You could offload storage. You could offload calculation. You could offload scheduling. What you could not offload was the actual work of reasoning, forming a view, making an argument, synthesizing ideas from different sources, deciding what to believe. That was yours. It stayed in your head. And because it stayed there, it got practiced. Constantly. That boundary just moved. For the first time, you can now offload the reasoning itself. You can hand a problem to an AI, get back a structured, confident answer, and move on, without ever doing the cognitive work of figuring it out yourself. And that changes something fundamental about what happens inside your head. Step 1. The volume problems start with the environment. The amount of written content produced per day is now effectively unlimited. AI tools generate articles, reports, newsletters, LinkedIn posts, summaries, and analysis at near zero cost and near infinite scale. This means the information environment you are operating in, the feeds, the inboxes, the dashboards, is no longer constrained by the bandwidth of human writers. It is constrained only by how much can be generated, which is almost nothing. The result is a world where there is always more to read, more to skim, more to respond to. And your brain, which evolved to stay alert to new signals in the environment, is not well equipped to ignore it. Think of it this way. You used to live next to a river. The flow was fast, but finite. You could drink from it, navigate it, understand it. Now that river is a flood. And floods do not reward careful navigation. They reward staying on high ground. Now that you understand the volume problem, here is why that matters for your thinking specifically. Step 2. The shallow processing trap. When content is abundant, your behavior adapts. You skim more. You spend less time with any single idea. You move through information in search of the useful signal, rather than sitting with any of it long enough to actually understand it. This is not laziness. It is a rational response to an irrational environment. The problem is that deep thinking, forming real opinions, building genuine models of how something works, noticing the flaw in an argument, requires the opposite of skimming. It requires sustained, effortful attention on a single thing. And the more time you spend in shallow processing mode, scanning feeds, getting summaries, moving quickly, the harder it becomes to switch into the other mode when you actually need it. The neural pathways for patient, careful thinking weaken if they are not used. That is not a metaphor. It is just how cognitive habits work. But here is where most people get stuck. They assume the solution is willpower. Just think harder. Spend less time on your phone. Read more books. That framing misses the mechanism. The problem is not discipline. It is that the default environment now actively works against the conditions deep thinking requires. And you cannot out-discipline your environment forever. Step 3. The outsourced judgment loop. Now add AI into this picture. AI tools are genuinely useful. That is not in question. The problem is a specific pattern of use that quietly erodes something important. When you face a question, a decision, a piece of analysis, something you need to write, and your first move is to ask an AI for the answer, you are skipping the most cognitively valuable part of the exercise, the struggle. The struggle is where you build the model. The fumbling around, the wrong turns, the slow emergence of clarity. That process is not just a means to an end. It is how you develop the ability to think clearly about that class of problem in the future. When you outsource the struggle, you get the output without building the capability. You get the answer without forming the understanding. And if you do this consistently, over months and years, you end up in a position where you can use AI very efficiently, but you cannot actually evaluate whether the AI is right. That is the trap. You become dependent on a tool whose quality you can no longer independently assess. Step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. This is not an argument against using AI. It is an argument for understanding what you are trading when you use it as a replacement for thinking rather than a tool that supports it. Step 4. The confidence illusion. There is one more layer to this system. AI-generated content tends to sound confident. It is well-structured, clearly written, and presented without hedges or visible uncertainty. It does not say, "I am not sure about this." It presents a clean answer. And when you are exposed to a lot of confident-sounding information, whether you agree with it or not, you absorb a distorted sense of how much certainty is appropriate. Hard questions start to feel more settled than they are. Your tolerance for genuine ambiguity goes down. Your willingness to hold a question open, to sit with not knowing, atrophies. But almost everything worth understanding is genuinely uncertain. The most important questions in your career, which skills to build, what direction to take, how to evaluate a situation that does not fit a template, do not have clean answers. They require exactly the kind of thinking that the information environment is now training you away from. Here is what this looks like in practice. For two people with similar starting points, making different choices, you understand this system. When you use AI, you use it after you have thought about the problem yourself first, not instead of doing that. You know that your value is not in producing output, but in the quality of the judgment behind the output. You can tell when an AI answer is wrong, or incomplete, or confident about the wrong thing, because you have done enough of the underlying thinking to have a reference point. You are comfortable sitting with hard, unresolved questions. You have practiced that. People around you notice that you think differently, more carefully, more independently, and that you do not just repeat what the last thing you read said. Now consider the other version. You have stopped practicing the struggle. Every problem gets routed through a tool. Your output is high. Your opinions are borrowed, and you have slowly lost the ability to tell the difference. You cannot evaluate what the AI produces because you never sit with problems long enough to form an independent view. You are fast and fluent and dependent. And the gap between you and the person in the first scenario is widening, quietly, every week, in a direction that is very hard to reverse. The distance between those two outcomes is not intelligence. It is one decision made consistently, over time. The one thing I want to leave you with is a reframe, not a list of habits, not a productivity system. One way of thinking about this that changes your behavior, without requiring you to constantly override your instincts. Think of your thinking capacity as a physical skill, like strength or flexibility. It degrades when it is not used. It improves when it is challenged, and the challenges that build it most are the ones where the outcome is uncertain and the process is uncomfortable. With that frame in place, every time you are about to shortcut a piece of thinking, you are not just skipping that task, you are skipping a training session. And if you skip enough of them, you lose the fitness you were depending on. The practical implication is this: give yourself a deliberate thinking window before you use any AI tool on a real problem. Not forever. 10 minutes. Write down what you actually think, not what you hope the AI will tell you, not a prompt for someone else to answer. What do you actually believe about this? What is the real question underneath the surface question? After that, use the tool however you want. Use it to check your thinking, to fill in gaps, to speed up execution. That is fine. But do not skip the 10 minutes. The 10 minutes is the training. The rest is just productivity. The goal is not to think without AI. The goal is to think before AI, so that when AI gets involved, there is a real mind in the room to evaluate what it produces. At the start of this video, I asked, what actually happens to your thinking when you stop practicing it? Here is the answer in one sentence. You do not lose the ability to think. You lose the ability to notice when you have stopped. That is the core of it. The degradation is invisible from the inside. You still feel like you are forming opinions and making judgments. You just stop being able to tell whether those opinions are yours or borrowed, whether those judgments are grounded or just confident sounding noise you absorbed from a feed. Which brings me to the question I am not going to answer today. We have been talking about thinking clearly in a world of AI noise, but there is a related problem that goes one level deeper. What happens to your ability to pay attention when the AI-assisted world is also optimized at every layer to fragment it? Because thinking clearly depends on attention. And attention is the thing the entire information ecosystem is designed to take from you. That is the next video.